The situation in the Middle East gets spookier and worse by the day, and in today's breaking update, we have some major things to talk about the ceasefire, some massive escalations that have been detected in the region. The oil price continues to climb. I will talk to you about that, where it's going. And the oil crisis, the petrol crisis, is getting more real. Literally by the hour, by the day. You can see in the background here clips from India as this oil begins to run out. And in Australia as well, there's now over 400 petrol stations that are out of oil. So we have so many things to talk about in today's video, an absolute monster update. And it's very important you understand what's going to happen next, because things are getting a little bit spooky. They're getting a little bit ominous. We also have a very ominous signal coming out of the White House. We'll talk about that video that just came out. And also at the end of the video, we'll be talking about this Kharg Island, because there has been, again, a resurgence in attention on Kharg Island. We'll talk about this clip from CNN. They talk about it. We'll give you the Iranian point of view. And also, we're going to give you the actual answer of what actually happens if Marines, if Rangers, if Delta Force, or whoever it might be, were to land on Kharg Island. We'll give you Colonel Douglas McGregor, who does have qualifications to talk on the matter. He's got a very critical update at the end that has been viewed a viral amount of times that will give you some insight to where this conflict goes next. And guys, if you enjoy these videos, you like the breaking updates, subscribe to the channel, and let's get straight into it. So the biggest update we have just breaking is Iran has rejected the US's ceasefire proposal. So there were 15 points. We spoke about it yesterday. Trump had said recently that he was talking to a secret source in Iran that was going to give him a present. It looks like none of that has materialized into anything, and Iran has just come out flat out and rejected that. It's rejected against the ceasefire. It's rejected against the pause. And I have to say, on this channel, it's nothing to be surprised about at all, because we have been breaking down exactly where this conflict has been going. As a result of that, the oil price, even though Trump did manage to get it down to about $93 Brent right here, going back up. So it dropped quite a lot based off Trump's announcement, but have a look at that. It's going back up. And not only that, I mean, countries are starting to really feel it right now. So it's not when is this going to happen, it's how bad is it happening right now, because Australia, for example, has had to have an emergency meeting. There is an emergency national meeting right now because of the fuel crisis. And over 470 petrol stations. Now it's getting worse. It's getting worse by the day. Petrol is running out. And not only that, there is huge ramifications about this. And look, Peter Schiff talks about this. We'll talk about this later in the video. He says it's going to be worse than the GFC. I actually think it's going to be way worse. It's not just a financial crisis. It's actually going to be way worse than just a financial crisis, because it involves actual material goods. But this is getting worse and worse and worse by the day. So the big picture you have to understand is every day this thing drags on, there is no resolution, this stuff is going to become more and more normal. So have a look at India. This is people lining up to fill up their mopeds and their vehicles in India. It doesn't look good. In Chile, this is the petrol line, right? Because petrol prices are going up. Shortages are coming. And it's not only that, we also have fertilizer shortages happening. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Fertilizer prices are going up. So the whole financial market is looking extremely, extremely shaky. And this is part of the reason why, stocks are looking a little bit wobbly. Yes, we have seen silver and, gold just edge up slightly. But again, it's looking wobbly in the short term. We'll talk more about that later in the video. But that's one big update to have right now. Now, into some interesting things, why this is not working out. Let's just play some of these clips coming out of the US. So this is Trump speaking, and then we'll listen to Pete Hegseth, and I'll give you guys my take on this.
Disappointed. I don't want to say this, but I have to. I said, Pete and General Raisin Kane, I think this thing's going to be settled very soon. Here they go. Oh. That's too bad. Pete didn't want it to be settled. It's these guys are doing a great job. That's a good attitude, though, Tom, right? They were not interested in settlement. They were interested in just winning this thing.
So just by winning this thing, he's implying bombing right there. Physical attacks, violence instead of negotiation, which is adding to this grand problem we're having. But also, listen to Pete Hegseth. This guy, look, just my opinion, a little bit. Not a little bit, maybe very unhinged. Let's have a listen into this.
Ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs.
So there you go, Pete Hegseth negotiating with violence and bombs. I mean, from what I can view right here, this is not very strategic. This is not very intellectual at all. And this is part of the reason this situation might be getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the other thing that has been breaking as well, this is coming out of NBC, the Iranians have actually picked up on this as well. It's part of the psychological warfare that is operating. So you can see this is the FM of Iran. He has posted right here. It is said that Edward Bernays, a pioneer of mass persuasion, served on Committee on Public Information and worked to help Woodrow Wilson rally Americans for war in Europe. When he and Walter Lippmann met president in 1917, they reportedly said, "We can sell the war to the public." And he follows on to say, more than a century later, little has changed, except that now it seems the war is being sold not once, but daily, even to the president himself through carefully curated videos. And I just want to say before we get deeper into this tweet, that's a really good guy to understand. He's written some really interesting books, Edward Bernays, or papers. I've read some of them. He actually put out a documentary. It's called The Century of Self. So if you like the advanced kind of psychological warfare, it's also got to do with marketing as well. So like selling things, it was like how to sell cigarettes to women to mean it was like independent and empowering to smoke cigarettes, which is, that was the guy who invented a lot of it. So it's all about psychological warfare, selling to people. And Edward Bernays, and the Iranians have picked up on this. And, he's quote tweeting this, which says right here, exclusive, each day since the start of the war, US military officials compile a video update for President Trump that shows the biggest, most successful strikes on Iranian targets over the previous 48 hours. But the military can't brief Trump on every strike, and so the video, while it showcases US capabilities, doesn't reflect the full scope of the conflict. We can't tell him every single thing that happens. So people are concerned about this. And the reason is, and this is not to give Trump an out in this, but, people are speculating. NBC is saying, there could be a bit of a handling of Trump. So Trump is only getting fed information, it could be said, that show winning strikes, like those Wii clips. Remember when we played the Wii clips on the channel of like Nintendo Wii, where, the US would blow up things and, have like upbeat music in the background. Maybe Trump's watching that. And maybe that's the only side of this conflict he is seeing. And that's why he's coming out in these press conferences, just saying how much he's winning and accusing, the fake news of reporting fake news. When really, if you have a look at the grand scheme of things, you look at the whole context right now, the truth of the matter, at this point right now, Iran has, missile supremacy within that region. It has lots of missiles. It has lots of drones. The Strait of Hormuz is currently under Iranian control. And, President Trump might be on the receiving end of a bubble. But having said that, he's still responsible for this. Like, there's no outright here. If you're the CEO of a company, you're the responsible guy. So Trump can't just, blame all his advisors in this situation. He has to, understand the bigger picture, right? And there's a very big picture forming around this, and it could even get worse that we'll talk about later in the video. Now, we have a spooky clip. Again, this is the stuff coming out of the White House. I don't know why they're doing this, or they're trying to do psych warfare on people. Like, what is the point of this clip? Anyway, this is getting a viral amount of attention. It's only been out for 30 minutes, but let's play this. So let's just quickly play this clip. Okay, that's it. 4-second clip. It flashes, it has a notification sign, and then during the video, it actually has this, which is an American flag. So does this mean there's something big that has just been activated? We're not sure. People are speculating on this, that, there is maybe a big attack or something on the way. But again, that's the screenshot from the video. I don't know why the White House is putting that out, but that is something ominous. But also something even more ominous is this is a sign over Tel Aviv. Guys, crows are circling. It's like thousands upon thousands of crows are circling in Tel Aviv. And this actually has historically bad omen. It's like a historically bad omen, I believe, back in the day, or even to this today. So take that for whatever you think it means. But yeah, that's something interesting right there. Now, as this war escalates, fertilizer going up, food shortage becomes more and more of a reality. Spain, have a look at this. And this is the part of diplomacy that is, interesting. Breaking. Iran has granted Spain safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz as Spain continues to prohibit the US from using its military bases for operations against Iran. So again, who's calling the shots here? The Iranians are calling the shots, and they're saying, basically, if you don't attack us, you don't join in this military conflict, we're going to let you get the oil, and you're not going to have all these, gas problems in your country. So this guy, he's looking quite happy, and it's who's calling the shots at the moment. The Iranians are calling the shots for the Strait of Hormuz. They're calling the shots for the oil right now. In addition to that, we also have right here, Russia is getting to some degree involved in this conflict, and we did speak about this previously, but it does look they have shipped drones, medicine, and food to Iran within the last 24 hours. And this is not to be surprising at all, though, because who ships weapons, food, drones to Ukraine? US does, Europe does. So to have, and they effectively kill Russian troops. So the Russians are doing potentially the same thing in the Middle East. So that is coming out, and Putin is poking holes at some of the hypocrisy that's happening in some of the Western countries right now. And he says they signed all sort of letters at the start of the Ukrainian conflict, yet these lovers of the epistolary arts have written anything about the current tragic events. And I have no idea what that word means. So if you guys want to comment down below, if you guys got a big brain and big thesaurus or dictionary, tell me what that word means right there. But Putin using big words, and he's just pointing out the hypocrisy of Western countries. And look, oil is going up. The situation is getting worse. And to be completely honest with you, I actually think at the moment, I hate to say this, but Trump is facing just losing moves. So the chessboard is like, what is the best losing move to make at the moment? That's the way this conflict is going. Because look, broadly speaking, when this war started, remember the polls against it. We spoke about it. It was like 70%, maybe 80% of people against this war. As the US potentially, even if it escalates it and more losses and costs come in, it's going to get even more unpopular. And what would actually bring a stop to this war? And this is getting thrown back on, people have to actually activate, but it's if people actually protested this properly. So in the past, look, you've seen protests happen for all types of events, particularly in the USA. You've seen protests, all types of events in the USA. Where's the protest against this war? Because that is something that could potentially dramatically quickly end this, but it doesn't seem to be like there's much political coordination protesting this war at the moment, despite its unpopularity. So remember, like 80% of people are against this. Only about 20% of people are for this. But again, this is something that's going to impact you. So whether you like this war or not, you're going to be paying higher oil prices. If this thing gets really bad, you might not even have food on the shelves of your shop. That's how bad it might get depending on what country you live in. Unfortunately, Australia, with its massive incompetence, the government right here, we might be in the receiving end of not much food and not much fuel. So yeah, Mad Max might become a reality if you've seen the movie. Unfortunately, that might be a thing. And the other thing to understand as well is, yes, there is just losing moves at the moment. You have the Iranians kind of getting the upper hand at the moment. And Peter Schiff has said, look, this is the worst. We're headed for a full-blown financial crisis. February import prices spiked 1.3%, while exports prices surged 1.5%, annualizing inflation rate to 16.8 to 19.6%. That's before oil rose 50%. Unless the Fed raises rates several hundred basis points now, inflation will skyrocket. And look, I'll be honest with you, this is way worse than this. Because remember, look, financial crises, they're intangible. It's about just moving numbers around on ledgers. Doesn't really matter. Again, the Great Depression, again, you could go into a big debate about the Great Depression, but it was a monetary phenomenon, right? It had to do with debt and things that are intangible. But the actual supply lines in this situation, because you have so many tankers of oil sitting in the Middle East not moving, that's going to have real impact on, growing crops, producing food. This is where it goes from a financial crisis into an actual potential for a famine and things like that. That's how bad it can get. And again, as this thing drags on, as there is no resolution, as Trump refuses, and if Trump just drags us on, that is also another losing move. So let's actually just before this video, this is going to be a long video just today. I'll just get all my thoughts out for this, but we'll just map some potential moves right here for Trump. So, move number one, let's just say he does nothing. So it's a stalemate. And that's kind of what's happening today. So nothing has really been achieved, no agreement. This thing drags on. This is just walking towards the cliff edge, right? So you're still going to be going towards the cliff edge because oil's not getting out. The situation gets worse and worse and worse. So the stalemate situation brings us to losing move number one, which is bad, right? It's not good. Losing move number two is going into Karg Island and trying to escalate this into an actual like amphibious assault. We'll talk about that at the end of the video, so I have some really good insight to share with you. But again, this is another losing move. You're going to lose more troops. This is going to be super tough. So remember, versing the Iranians is not the same as versing the Afghanistan. I mean, Afghanistan didn't even have an air force, and the US still potentially lost that. The Iranians have missile superiority in the region. They have drone superiority. This is a completely different army. It's almost like, I would consider it like maybe it's a tier 2 country. So it's a tier 1 country versus a tier 2 country. But the tier 2, it's got 92 million people, lots of missiles, lots of drones. So again, this is going to be tough. It's almost like a guerrilla warfare. The whole country is, against the USA. So this is going to be another losing option, because we're seeing at the moment, even though Trump might be sitting in his silo thinking he's winning this with Wii montage and Nintendo highlights and baseball highlights and slam dunks being sent to him by Peter Hegseth, there's a good chance, Trump is getting more and more deluded by this conflict. And he might even make a bigger error right here. So that even might escalate to a worse error with move number 2, right? Move number 3, right, is going to be some type of catastrophic surrender, right? And this is what the Iranians are pushing towards. So if you have a look right here, this is like a surrender and withdrawal, all right? So surrender, withdraw. Excuse my writing. My writing is absolutely terrible. Can barely write with a mouse right here, but bear with me. So surrender / withdrawal, and what are the conditions for this? So if we actually bring up the conditions for an Iranian surrender, you can see right here there's 5 conditions. So Iran sets 5 conditions to end the war: full halt to aggression and assassinations, guarantees that the war will not be imposed on Iran again, clear and binding war reparations, end of conflict across all fronts, including allied groups, international recognition of Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. So they are asking, they are hardballing Trump. They're saying, this is what we want. If you don't agree to this, this war continues. And the ball is actually, all the leverage is actually with Iran right now. So if you have a deeper understanding of this, so guarantees the war will not imposed on Iran, that means they want the US out of the Middle East. They want the US, these military bases that are already uninhabitable. So there's reports coming out at the moment that the military bases in some of these countries like Qatar and Bahrain and other places, US troops can't even stay in them because it's not safe to stay in them. Not because of missiles, because they've been destroyed. It's like trying to sleep in an apocalypse, bunker that's been blown up effectively, and they have to stay in hotels. But while that's happening, Iranians are saying to the locals to report where in the hotels, what levels US troops are staying in the hotels, and they're actually sending drones into hotels that are housing US troops. That's how bad the situation is getting. So Iran is basically saying you have to get out of the region, right? So clear and binding war reparations, end of conflict across all fronts. So that means like Hezbollah near Israel as well, and international recognition of controls of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. So at the moment, I just want to highlight just how much the US has lost out of this. So if we were to freeze and Trump was to take option number 3 out of this conflict, this is a huge loss. It cannot be underestimated how big this is in terms of US influence. So remember, how many years did the US dominate this region? Ever since, September 11th, growing influence. And if US had have went down like a more, Roman military doctrine, where you have economic relationships, but without trying to just, completely destroy countries and things like that. It could be ultra wealthy. So, if you're going to the gas pump and you're paying a lot for gas, just remember in a different world where you had different leaders, and you had actually leaders who actually looked after your interests, like genuinely looked after your interests instead of lobbying groups and other groups that are surrounding the president, you would be incredibly wealthy right now, without a doubt. I can guarantee you that. So unfortunately, that is option number 3, which is a complete and utter loss. And the other option, I'm going to put this in as this is going to be less than 1%. And this is the crazy thing about this war. So I'm going to say less than 1%. It's probably going to be less than It's actually less than 0.1%, but I'm going to put this in. All right. So one thing the Iranians do have is they do have missiles, right? One thing they don't have is they don't have access to nukes. Now, this is because this war has been so crazy and it's been so unpredictable. Let's just chuck in this option as number 4. There is a chance, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I think it's the wrong move to make, but there is a low chance that a nuke gets used in this war, like actually. So I don't want that to happen, but that could happen. A nuke could get used. Again, the big question about a nuke is how would the world react to a nuke against Iran? Like, you know, what happens next? And we could talk about that in another video, but that is option number 4. But just have that on the radar, okay? So as this thing drags on. And remember, the longer this thing drags on, the worse this whole situation will get. Now, let's talk about this. So again, every day this goes on, it gets worse and worse and worse. So let's talk about the Karg Island situation, because again, this is getting on the radar. So you can see this guy right here has put out the tweet, MB Galidibaf. He says, we are closely monitoring all US movements in the region, especially troop deployments. What the generals have broke, the soldiers can't fix. Instead, they will fall victim of Netanyahu's delusions. Do not test our resolve to defend our land. So he's highlighting at this Strait of Hormuz, Karg Island potentially. CNN has come out with this. We'll play this clip and then we'll get into what actually happens if this does happen. So let's listen in.
Front tonight, the breaking news: Iran laying traps ahead of a potential American ground invasion. So here's what sources are telling CNN tonight. They say Iran is actively preparing for an invasion of Karg Island. That is that 8 square mile island at the top of the Persian Gulf, 20 miles off the coast of Iran, that exports nearly 20% of the country's oil. So obviously it's central for Iran, an artery. It's an island, in fact, that Trump has long talked about invading. Now, the traps that we understand that are being put there, okay, from CNN's reporting, anti-personnel and anti-armor mines, we understand placed around the island. And Tehran also apparently quickly moving a large number of actual troops and air defenses to this island, its crown jewel in its oil industry. So far, we understand that includes shoulder-fired, surface-to-air guided missile systems as well. Now, all of these things could result in a large number of U.S. casualties if U.S. ground forces invade, according to U.S. officials and military experts. And some in Trump's inner circle are sounding the alarm, warning him that seizing that island would not resolve the issues related to the Strait of Hormuz.
All right, so that's a clip coming out of CNN, obviously highlighting and potentially, highlighting Trump's next move right there. Now, what would actually happen if that was to play out? We have a very good clip coming in from... what is this guy's name? Colonel Douglas McGregor, and this is from Daniel Davis's deep dive. So let's listen into this, and it's got some great insight. I'll tell you that it's some great insight right here. And he talks about what actually happens if troops were to land in the Strait of Hormuz and try and capture some of these islands, Karg Island and things like that. So listen in. Very, very good take. And again, this is an experienced military officer talking about this.
Paratrooper on the ground. Once you put the Marine on the ground, the Ranger, whoever it is. What are they going to do? What can they do? Are they going to seize and hold something of great value? What is the seizure about? If they go to an island, can they hold that island? Well, I think we're finding out that islands are extremely vulnerable. Unless it's the size of Borneo, that means that all sorts of precision strike missiles and unmanned systems can annihilate everything on the island. So if you think you're going to go on an island and then hold it for what? What's the benefit? How does it help you? And see, from the Iranian standpoint, they're probably sitting there asking themselves, how could we be this stupid? And we shouldn't get confused. We're not saying that Marines or soldiers or anybody else are not good, solid people that are well-trained and reasonably well-led, I hope, and disciplined. It's not the point. Is what are they going to do when they get there? And how much can you expect of them? So that's why I go back to this thing of, we'll seize the islands. Now, if you look at the straits, and this is very important. I just wrote a piece on Substack that goes into some detail on this. If you go through all the thinking and then you say, I'm going to introduce ground troops and I'm going to seize the straits. What does that mean? If you look at the sides of the strait, in other words, the coastline, you're talking about 1,000 feet of cliff. In other words, this is an uphill climb in the worst sense of the word. Are you then going to land troops further to the east and then make the long march around to take it from the landward side? I mean, what are you doing? If you're going to put them on an island, once they're sitting on the island, what kind of control or influence are they going to assert? And the answer is none, because the place will be pulverized. It'll be covered by rockets and missiles. Anything on it will be exterminated. I mean, that's the easy thing to do. What else would you do? Now, of course, if you're going to make the argument that the Iranians are running out of missiles, which reminds me of the Russian army running out of missiles and rockets and so forth, then maybe it's fine. Maybe you could go there and open the chaise lounge chair and take in some sun. But the point is, I don't think so. And I don't think that you can stop from 150 kilometers away all sorts of weapons being launched against those sites. And again, we're back to persistent surveillance. What are you going to do that's going to fool anybody? Where are you going to stage forces? Are you going to try and stage them in Kuwait, in Bahrain? Are you going to try and stage out of Oman? I doubt seriously the Omanis will be receptive to that idea. Are you going to try and stage out of the UAE? Anywhere you go or you try to mass forces, it's going to be picked up, it's going to be targeted, and you're going to be brought under effective fire. So the problem with all of this is, do we have these capabilities? Yeah, we got lots of light infantry. Much of it's good. It'll go where you send it. But what are you asking it to do? And I think at the moment, we're asking them to do the impossible, to exert control over geography that they can't control. It's not a question of, are there not enough of them? It's simply a question of surveillance and strike. And if you don't have that advantage, if you can't rob the enemy of ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and you can't defeat his intermediate range or tactical ballistic missiles and so forth, what are you going to do? Perhaps we're going to have to go through this in order to learn this lesson the hard way.
So there we go. I mean, great insight from Colonel Doug McGregor right there. And it just highlights, just how tough this situation is for Trump right now. So it doesn't matter which way you really cut it. It does seem like there is only potentially losing moves to make, and which move is the least damaging. What's the best, worst lose to make? So guys, comment down below what you think Trump should do next. How do you think this is going to play out? Again, look, we're just putting ideas out there. This is a highly unpredictable conflict, but I do hope this analysis does give you some insight into where it could or potentially might play out next. But appreciate you tuning in. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next one.